I will be forever the myth.
You're the king of kings,
There's always a pecking order. The little packers never mess with the big packers. So I'm a rooster, and he's a chicken, so to speak.
How did you get into photography, Brian?
I got into it by accident. I'm definitely an accidental photographer. I was into Harleys deep in like the 90s and early aughts, more like the 90s. And I built this really amazing Pro Street bike, really, really cool bike. And I guess to validate my build, I wanted to get into a biker magazine.
Okay.
And I thought, I knew about the muscle world. They had no budgets. And I'm assuming biker magazines had smaller budgets. So I thought, I knew the bike was kind of worthy of it. It was just really special. And I thought, I'm just going to take photographs of the bike. I'm going to deliver them the shoot, like via mail. Here are the slides. And I knew that I needed like a biker chick. That's what they called them back then. And I remember I took an ad in a local paper, the Village Voice, literally looking for like, I forgot what my language was, but kind of like a girl that kind of like could hang out on a Harley. And I actually found a young woman that did that.
Yeah.
So I set up this shoot and I shot my bike. I shot her on the bike and I just kind of enjoyed it, like the process. And then that's what started me, literally. And then from there, I started taking photos of others. I started taking photos of my biker friends. I've always used the camera like a mirror. I just hold it up to like the things that I love. And so it was like my pit bull, the women in my life, old trucks, old tractors, and bodybuilding.
Yeah.
And then a little later on, and strippers, a stripper here and there. And I showed that work to people that I knew in the sport, like Sharon Bruneau, Erica Kern. And my style was black and white. It was dirty, it wasn't like fancy, shiny, happy people. It just had like a mood to it. Sexy, but just sort of had a mood to it.
Yeah. When
I showed Sharon and Erica and other women that my work, they were like, "Oh my God, that's so cool. Would you shoot me?" And so that's how I shot like the first sort of like personalities in our world.
Yeah.
And then I showed that work to Jim Chatta, who was the creative director of Muscle and Fitness, who I knew from the Gladys days. I knew everybody at Weider, of course.
Yeah.
And I said, "Hey, Jim, like, what do you think of these pictures?" And he's like, "Oh man, these are really cool. Like, okay, well, what if you did this at the Arnold's Classic?" Like I was shooting, there's literally usually no place to shoot. So I would just go in and rent like a hotel room, or in those days, more like a cheesy kind of like motel room, but in a cool retro vibe. Like this was out in the country. Or with Sharon, it was, I think in Santa Monica, we found like kind of like the trashier better, wood paneling on the walls. It just had it wasn't like the Holiday Inn. That's not what I was looking for.
Right.
And he said, "Well, what if, we fly out to Arnold's and then you just choose the women and you shoot them in their hotel rooms?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course."
Yeah.
"And you're going to pay me."
Yeah.
"You're going to pay me $1,500. I was like, "Holy shit. Fuck yeah." And so I said yes. I'd never done a professional shoot in my life. It was a point and shoot camera and one light. And I went out there, no assistant, no nothing, but I had the power of Muscle and Fitness behind me.
Right.
So I reached out. I knew some of the girls. I'd be like, "Oh, I'm doing this shoot. Are you okay?" Lessig, Christiana Cassoni, some great names. And so like a madman for 2 days, I ran around. I think I did like 13 women shooting. And then that became my first feature, was called Behind Closed Doors. And from that, I was offered a contract. It's crazy.
Wow.
That's awesome. I was under exclusive contract to shoot for Joe for 6 years.
Wow. Okay. Was this after your gym closed? After you sold the gym? No.
It was the sign me up. Let's see, that it straddled it. That shoot was published, I think, in 98.
Okay.
And it was black and white in Muscle and Fitness, which was was kind of radical.
Yeah.
You didn't see black and white. So that was 98. And then I think I did, I guess it was 4 or 5 years. I have to look at my notes. But anyway, so yeah, it straddled it. If I sold 97, 98, yeah. So I sold, but I think I was still in the gym for some reason. Maybe it was a few months to get out or something like that. I don't remember precisely. But it sort of literally transitioned from that.
Right.
That. I mean, they didn't offer me the contract right away, but after they got the film, or maybe, I don't remember the timing, but then I was under contract. It was just crazy.
That's awesome.
Just fucking crazy.
Yeah, I remember your photos. They were very unique. They were really cool.
Yeah, people still remember them today, which is incredible.
Yeah.
For anybody to remember an editorial feature in a monthly magazine, like over 20, 25 years later, it's mind-blowing.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about the the modeling agency you had going through Better Bodies, because I thought that was really cool. I think you did that in the middle 80s, right?
84.
84, yeah.
84.
I saw one of the videos that you put on YouTube about that, and I remember when it was going on.
WSJ, the Wall Street Journal report.
Bodybuilding has become big business. It's no longer the province of beefy guys in sweaty gyms. Today, men and women are pumping iron on Madison Avenue. Gladys Portugues is a world-class bodybuilder. She's also a beautiful woman. It's a potent combination.
It's a hot thing now. It sells. That's where the market is. That's where they start pushing for it, We need someone with great legs. Can't be fatty on the legs, We need someone with great arms. Everything is, has to be in shape.
Advertisers have discovered that well-developed bodies can put real muscle into their ad campaigns. But until gym owner Brian Moss came along, Madison Avenue didn't know where to look for a model with great deltoids.
Your normal mode of casting was the yellow pages. You get on the phone, you call all the gyms up, and you hope and pray that you're going to come up with somebody that's credible in what you're looking for. Because I was getting a few of those calls, just because I was next in line in the phone book.
His idea? A one-stop shop for brawn and beauty called Better Bodies. While it's not a conventional modeling agency, its commercial rates are about the same, $350 an hour. What's not the same is what he has to sell. The kinds of questions he asks are not what the Ford agency might ask.
How big do you want this man? Should he have hair on his body? Should he have veins? How much muscle should the woman have? Should she have abdominals, and so on?
Moss isn't worried that this is just one more mad fad that will give way to the next advertising gimmick.
People continue to train, then this means the population is now looking different, so there's no way that you can regress back to the way in which both men and women were being portrayed on the advertising scene.
As for the models,
pays extremely well, so it's well worth the pain.
So you basically were kind of managing like Gladys and a couple of the other bodybuilders from your gym, and you were managing their careers, right?
Well, two things going on there. There was the agency, which really didn't deal with the management of careers. But as part of what was called Better Bodies Model Management, I had sort of technically a separate group where because I was managing Gladys, I thought, well, I can manage others. And so that my idea was that I could handle a handful of bodybuilders and just sort of manage, not their training, but just sort of promotionally and things like that. But that didn't really go. I think I did some more Claire Furr. I mean, a few people. I think Lee Labrada I met with, but I never really did anything with anybody other than, Gladys, I think, plus my gym was sort of a full-time job. But the agency aspect of it was that, or the way that it came about is before I opened it, what would happen if you were a company and you wanted to have a muscle man or a muscle woman in your ad or your commercial, you would probably tell your production assistant, go to the phone book and call gyms, because the gyms would get those calls. Hey, we're from such and such production. We're looking for a guy. He's got to have big arms, whatever. And so that's how it happened. And people did obviously get jobs that way. But that gave me the idea, like, I knew as a client, like, if you're setting up a huge shoot with all these people and all this money, how do you know that that person's going to show up? I mean, just kind of call the gym. You don't really know who the person is. I just felt like if I formalized it in some way, it would be easier so that the production company, if they needed man, woman, large, small, whatever, they would just call Better Bodies Model Management. And that it actually worked. Got a lot of commercials. And of course, you can see all the covers that Gladys got. Yeah, it really worked. And it was pretty radical. Again, it doesn't seem radical today because, my God, everybody's fit.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
And there are agencies that are doing that now. Yeah. But in '84, I got publicity just for the agency itself, mainstream. Yeah. Advertising Age, which was like the Bible in that world, did a feature on it. Like, I thought, oh my God, Advertising Age. So yeah, I mean, it was cool. You know, it had its time, and then I think it basically.
Did it get to the point where you were like the go-to place, like the go-to person to call if they needed somebody, if a company needed? Was it that well?
Well, I think so. Well, for New York, I remember LA. Nobody from LA is going to call for a New York bodybuilder. That's not going to happen. They were everywhere in LA. I don't know how they found them. They probably went to Muscle Beach and Golds. Yeah. But at least for New York, all the agencies. See, I wasn't SAG affiliated, so I couldn't technically send somebody out on a commercial, let's say. Oh, okay. What happened was the SAG affiliated agents would connect with me. We would split the commission, but they would give me what was called the breakdown. They got the call from the client, then the agent calls me. I say, oh yeah, we've got this guy. I get the breakdown on the go-see. That guy goes to the go-see, and then if he gets it, the agent gets it, and then we split the commission. Okay. For union purposes, I think they can only use agencies to book the talent. Yeah.
So Gladys was getting a lot of work with outside magazines, not just bodybuilding. She was doing like mainstream magazine. Oh yeah, right.
Well, she was doing mainstream magazines. My God, she was in fashion magazines. Yeah. Again, it was the wonder of a woman with muscle. I mean, these famous fashion photographers were like smitten by her. Really, not that much different than Lisa Lyon and Robert Mapplethorpe.
Right.
Mapplethorpe said when he saw Lisa Lyon, I guess it was a photo of her in, I think, '79, that he felt it's like she was from another planet. Wow. That's Mapplethorpe saying that. Yeah. Mapplethorpe's seen a lot of shit. Right. And then of course he went on to do, really important work with Lisa Lyon. So yeah.
I just read an article right before we did the interview. I was going through some of my old Flex magazines, and I read how Gladys went to Canada to do a thing for Ken Wheeler's gym.
Oh wow, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and then she went out there and started training, and kind of like secluded herself to train for the Olympia out there.
Well, I guess she's getting a lot of work. We're talking about Gladys Portugues, and she has been photographed and appeared in numerous publications, including American Photographer, Photo Magazine, Cosmopolitan, Self, Madison Avenue, Sports Style. You talk about somebody that knows what she's doing and definitely on the right track.
Definitely. I think she's been on at least 3 or 4 non-bodybuilding magazine covers. That's quite an accomplishment for a bodybuilder. More developed with better symmetry than I've ever seen her. I couldn't decide who should get the prize for the most improved, she or Corey Everson.
All right, we'll give you some stats and then sit back and watch her routine with you. She's 27 years of age from New York City, 5'4", 114 pounds. That is Portuguese.
Gladys is using a new approach this time. She has her hair tied up in a bun so that it doesn't distract from her overall physique and beautiful proportions. Her routine is also much more serious.
Well, Lynn, do you like this better, the serious approach? Because the picture that I'm looking at of her publicity photo, I should say, she has her hair down.
Yes, she does, and she did that in Toronto. Her routine was more cutesy, more sexy, not as serious with the bodybuilding element in it. And I think that cost her, because now she has the physique and she's showing it, and she's doing it in a graceful, tasteful manner. A much more sophisticated and elegant presentation, and she will certainly place much better as a result of her change.
Gladys Portugues. She got into the sport after watching the 1980 Ms. Olympia contest.
Gladys has very carefully developed her physique so that no one body part leads ahead of the other. This is another feature that will continually place her high as she continues in the sport.
Well, how would you get the judge's attention if you were out there on the stage being compared to 23 other beautiful women?
That's right. And yeah, Ken, I don't exactly remember how I met Ken, but Ken was my mentor in the gym business.
Oh, really?
He was best friends with Vince Gironda. He helped Muhammad Makawi in Toronto.
Yeah.
And I looked to him for, I'm just like this little gym owner. He was a chain owner, chain of clubs called Super Fitness. Brilliant guy, knew really everything about everything. And he was my mentor. And then he, of course, fell in love with, I think me and Gladys, and he saw Gladys's potential. And there was a point where it's beyond me. Like, I'm not a guru or a trainer. I mean, I'll get in shape, but I don't know that I could get somebody ready for an Olympia stage.
Yeah.
And Ken had experience with that. So what we did is we flew her up there, and she stayed with him. I don't remember the time period, but a few weeks, all pre-contest.
Yeah.
And he just tracked and monitored everything, training, food, you name it.
Yeah. Yeah. They said she lived like in seclusion, just in her hotel room watching TV, couldn't go out, do anything, had to eat a lot of food because her metabolism was so fast, but they totally changed her body, put a lot of muscle on her for that Olympia.
Yeah, I didn't remember that magazines covered that. That's cool to hear that. I don't remember that. Yeah.
I think it was a cover shot, and it said the men who made Gladys beautiful or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I don't know. That's good to hear that.
A model, but as you're about to see, more than just a pretty face.
What I tried to do was to form an illusion, in a sense, because I am one of the smallest ones in the lineup, and I'll always be one of the smallest ones. But I had to form some kind of an illusion in a sense where I look bigger than what I am, than what my weight really is. And that is just making the waist very small and working on the lats as wide as possible and just bringing up good quality muscle.
And speaking of charisma, Frank, do you think Gladys had succeeded in her bodybuilding plan?
Dorothy, I can relate to her plan all right, because it was the same plan I had. I was probably the most slender Mr. Olympia, and I had to create this illusion of size on stage too. But if you're in top shape, like Gladys is, and she does have that small waist you can see there, she does create the illusion of having more size than she actually does.
Frank, Gladys told me she began bodybuilding because her friends were kidding her about being so skinny. I could stand that kind of kidding.
I think most women could, no doubt about that. But Gladys wants to be more than just skinny. She wants to have development, and she has the charisma. She's really a total performer. You get the impression that when she's posing, she's loving every minute of it. There you can see how small her waist is. There must be under 20.
No, I know she's a little nervous because she's a New York girl and her mom is in the audience, and she told me that makes her more nervous than any judges.
She certainly doesn't look nervous to me. Very nice performance.
New York.
But yeah, he was a really important man for both of us. My God.
Yeah.
Could have gotten where she got without his help. Nor I, like I said, when it was a gym thing or a membership thing. I mean, he just had a very great perspective sales and membership and pricing and all those things that, was flying by the seat of my pants from the beginning.
Right. What was the thing you did in '85? I think it was in conjunction with the Night of the Champions, where you guys had that, it was like a nightclub thing with Carla Dunlap. I think Mike Christian was there, Gladys.
Yeah. I've done a series of shows in the nightclubs. It wasn't aligned with any particular show, other than I tried to do them around a show so that I have access to bodybuilders and shape. Just the logistics of it. It was always for a cause or for, there was a reason for it, fundraising. And that was a couple of members. My gym just had the most creative, amazing members, from the best DJs, graffiti artists, like stylists, just amazing. And that group of people had those nightclub connections, but they trained at Better Bodies. They knew me, they knew Gladys, and again, the wonder of muscle. And they staged it. And to this day, when I watch those clips, I get chills. I mean, I see Carla posing like that and Gladys. It just gives me chills. And it was spectacular. And we always thought back then, like, bodybuilding is kind of boring. Like the show is boring.
Right.
And the idea here was to stage it like theater. And that's what they did. I literally had nothing to do with the creative on that, other than bring the sort of components together. That was a woman named Chichi Valente and Johnny Dinell, who I'm still friends with on Facebook. And they're still like god and goddesses of the night. They're amazing.
Oh, really? Yeah.
That was, that was all there. They were really, they still are incredibly hip downtown people.
Oh, really? Cool.
I wasn't, but they were. And that's how those things started. And we did them at Studio, Limelight, The Saint.
Limelight, that was the name. Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
The clubs in New York. And we all had a blast.
And that got amazing coverage. I mean, it was like national coverage. I saw video clips of it on national television.
Yeah.
Flesh for fantasy. We want home. Flesh for fantasy. We want home. Flesh for fantasy. In her eye. Flesh for fantasy.
They stand as symbols of fitness, like sculptures, chiseled and glistening. Years of commitment have spawned perfection. They are the muscular models of Better Bodies Model Management, a New York agency that's pumped up over the changing aesthetic in advertising. On this night at the Limelight Disco in New York City, these healthy bodies pose to prevent birth defects. This event was sponsored by the March of Dimes and Danskin, in a stage show that elevated bodybuilding from sport to theater.
Face to face, I'm back to back. You see and feel my sexual track. Flesh for fantasy. We cry. Flesh for fantasy.
Competition is competition, and it has to be kept cut and dry. But I think we prove that, again, these people are able to cross over into this mainstream market. They don't just have to come out pumped up and oiled up and pose. They're far more talented than that. You saw a lot of dance last night, a lot of great movement, a lot of acting.
Brian Moss is the director of Better Bodies Model Management. He says what began as a bodybuilding gym for women suddenly became the springboard for a much bigger idea.
I saw more and more people starting to work out, namely women. If more and more women were starting to work out, then in any sort of advertising always has to reflect the trend in the population. So if more and more women are starting to look better, have abdominals, biceps, then mustn't the advertiser take heed of that and reflect that in their ad campaigns?
Do it like this, do it like that. If you want the money, I do it like this, I do it like that. 'Cause I want the money. I get up and dance.
Gladys Portugues has been the most successful of the 25 models represented by Better Bodies. In the last year, she's appeared on 14 magazine covers, 8 of them mainstream publications unrelated to bodybuilding. Her credits include a role in the movie Pumping Iron 2, several commercials, and a part in the Nona Hendrix video, I Sweat.
Going through the motions, I sweat, I sweat, I sweat.
With a healthy blend of body and beauty, Gladys models for $2,000 a day. She'll be the first to tell you that developing a modeling career is as taxing as building a body.
It's very tiring. It's hard work. I mean, you can see I lost my voice with this thing. Last weekend I was in Michigan. The weekend before I was in West Virginia. So it's like that. My kind of living now is traveling a lot. The traveling takes a lot of energy from you. As soon as you get out of the plane, straight for publicity work. You got to do camera work. You have to be such a pro and smile while you're in agony, you know, that kind of deal. But I can do it. I'm a real fighter, and I really want it, and I know what to expect in life.
10 years ago, women bodybuilders were considered freaks by some. Today, advertisers are counting on them to sell products to mainstream America. Has the prejudice towards muscular females been erased? We showed people 2 photographs of Gladys. The first accentuated her muscularity as a bodybuilder. The second was an advertisement considerably more subtle, so much so that people didn't realize they were looking at the same woman.
This one is not pretty unless you're a biology major and you want to study muscle groups. This one is very nice to look at.
62% of the men and women questioned saw Gladys as feminine in the ad, but unfeminine in competition. Some might say bodybuilding's presentation of muscular women is to blame for many years of public ridicule.
Femininity, unfortunately, is socially defined and not biologically defined. We know who women are, but because there are such tight constraints on what we accept women as in terms of femininity, this is what creates a problem in these women's heads. Will I be feminine if I have muscle? Strength and muscle absolutely does not preclude beauty, and this is what Gladys personifies. She really epitomizes that image, and that's what we're all about.
Better Bodies model management is a bold concept with a head of steam. Federal Express, Diet 7-Up, and Hershey's Kisses are just a few of the clients who have used Better Bodies. Although it's tough to tell whether media exposure reflects public opinion or dictates it, marketing muscle is definitely an eye-catching advertising posture.
Yeah, we got national coverage, and the bodybuilders were so happy to be asked to do something outside of compulsory poses.
Yeah.
See how amazing they were, how beautiful it looked.
Yeah.
I mean, I also found that in my photography when I did like those crazy shoots like Milo Sarcev as Elvis and, you know, Mike Matarazzo as a clown. Like, they loved that.
Yeah.
It was not a training shoot.
Right. It's something different. Yeah.
Yeah, it was something different. And those shows were very much like that, but live.
Yeah.
And Johnny would do the music. He was an amazing DJ, and it was amazing. Yeah, really.
What's
amazing.
your thoughts on women's bodybuilding today, Brian? Because you were around when it started, and you saw how the women weren't really muscularly developed that much. Like they weren't that big, but they were so appreciated. You know, the contests were so big, the audiences were so big. I thought the women were so beautiful, and the way they posed, I thought was really amazing. The way they presented their physiques.
Yeah.
I just wonder what your thoughts were, the way it was then to what it eventually morphed into.
Well, you know, simple question, really complicated answer that I probably don't have the answer to. You know, I don't think it's fair, number one, to compare the two, because there's, 45-year difference.
Yeah.
So who we were then is not who we are now, not only as physiques, but as a culture. And again, that sense of wonder.
Yeah.
I mean, you can only see something for the first time once.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. So that was the first time for the world, and it was magical. So we can't have those expectations of women today.
Yeah.
Because we've seen everything. We've literally seen everything because of the digital culture and the digital paradigm. We see everything probably that there is to see, and we probably see too much of it. And so we're just inundated with everything. I don't just mean bodybuilding. Every aspect of our lives, we see everything. And I don't think that's a good thing from a creative standpoint, from just brain health. How can there be a sense of wonder? It's really hard.
Yeah.
It's really, you'd have to go out and find it.
Yeah.
And so I don't think we can have those expectations. And it just, if you go back to those early days, even back then, there were, I'm going to use the word fight, but not really a fight. There were different schools about what a female bodybuilder should look like.
Yeah.
And you have to ask yourself the question, who's posing the question, who's answering the question, and who are you trying to appeal to? And I will say it was driven by men. The sport was driven by men.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily by itself a terrible thing, but there's no doubt that early on, really early on, pre-bodybuilding, it was bikini contests at bodybuilding shows.
Yeah.
Miss Americana, these things. Those were, that was purely for the male gaze, and nobody could argue it wasn't. And ironically, that is what morphed, as we know, into early bodybuilding, which in my mind was the purest moment of the sport, because it was fresh, it was new. Women were exploring this beautiful thing called strength, which they had not been allowed to explore before.
Yeah.
And so then you start seeing different body types, right? So you have a Laura Combs.
Yeah.
Arms.
Yeah.
But I'll remind you, Laura Combs was like 5'4".
Right.
So how big are her arms?
Right.
Like, why was everybody clutching their pearls?
Right.
Back then they were.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they had also seen Lisa Lyon. Get it? Beautiful. Great symmetry. Laura Combs, great arms, maybe not great symmetry, but so what? She loved training, right? And she built muscle. And so that's where it was starting. Like, okay, you have those people that want that. And I think those people that wanted that were the women. It's like women should have been able to figure out what they want for themselves.
Yeah.
And they took a lot of shit back then. And that was wrong. Like, whether or not you as a promoter or a owner of an association decide that that's not what you want, you can't trash what a woman wants. If Laura wanted the biggest arms on the planet, she should have been able to grow them and train for them, whatever. And so what if she didn't win a show? So what?
Right.
I think most people that love bodybuilding just love training. And even if they don't win a show, they love the process.
Yeah.
And they don't win the show. And I just think it's critical to note that you have to consider the source. Like, everybody has their own self-interest in mind. And I'm sure it's the same today. These things don't change.
Yeah.
So back then you had the women, you had the publishers, and you had the promoters, right? The publishers and the promoters are profit driven. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. That's what they do. It's a business.
Right.
So they're making their decisions based upon what they think the public wants. Now, what they think, were they right? I don't know. But that's what they're making their calculations on.
Yeah.
Well, if the women get too big, then maybe the women don't want to come see the women at the show. Or if I'm a gym owner, maybe, the women won't come in because they think they're going to get big. Well, you know what? That stupid myth still exists today. Women think, oh, but I don't want to get too big.
Yeah.
So where did that get you? It'll be with us forever, apparently.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, not to digress, but the myths that I see and the trolls and the comments that I see on strong women's social media, that's the same bullshit that I heard 40 fucking years ago. It blows my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until recently, like in the old days, I would have defended it and tried to explain it and educate. And it took probably turning 65 to be like, fuck that. I don't know anybody an explanation. I don't need to explain to anybody why women should be allowed to train, and neither do women.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I see the women get caught up in that, and they're explaining or they're defending.
Yeah.
You don't have to defend shit.
Right. Right.
People will say whatever the fuck they want to say, especially now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Warriors.
An opinion, right?
So yeah, things have changed. There's no doubt about it. But you know, you have bikini, you have all these divisions, and you know, it's hard to get into a conversation, and somebody will say, "Wow, well, you know, look at Rachel. She wouldn't even win a bikini contest."
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I knew when bikini first started, they didn't look like bikini today.
Right.
Neither did bodybuilders.
Right.
Neither did bigger girls. Neither did fitness girls. I knew from the beginning that as much as you're going to try to like focus this very particular thing you have in your mind and keep it there, you won't be able to. It's not human nature.
Yeah.
It just isn't. And if women or men, physique, whatever, if you're training, how do you only train so hard, maybe not to look a certain way?
Right.
It's just not in our DNA.
Yeah.
So bikini girls are getting larger, more muscular. They're looking more like pro girls from the 80s.
Yeah.
It's like this weird natural progression. It just keeps moving forward.
Yeah.
Never backwards, never backwards.
Yeah.
That's like saying, you know, oh, you know, I love NASCAR from the 50s. You know, those cars were
the only one so fast.
Yeah. Why don't we just, you know, find cars that go 50 miles? I don't know how fast they went, but they're not doing the speeds that they are today. So I think
that was the argument in the movie Pumping Iron 2, where Charles Gaines was saying, well, who are we to say that a woman shouldn't get more muscular? Because Beth Francis was in the contest, and that was the big central theme of the whole movie. You know,
that was the protagonist, antagonist.
Yeah, yeah. She's so big, and why are we stopped? That's like Charles, I think, said in the movie. He's like, that's telling like a woman sprinter, you can only go so fast, and you have to stop. So.
I object to being told that there is a certain point beyond which women can't go in the sport. When you say that they should look athletic but not too masculine, what does that mean exactly? I mean, it's as though the U.S. Ski Federation told women skiers that they could only ski so fast.
I get, you know, bodybuilding's always been subjective, so I guess it's just up to the judges or the criteria of what they think is too big or how far it should go. But I mean, you're right. I mean, if you look at it like it's always going to progress, then progression in bodybuilding would mean they're just going to keep getting more developed and bigger, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess somewhere there's a limit to what the body can do, or what, you know, drugs can do, or I don't know. There's probably a limit, but you know, again, because I've been cranky about this whole thing, and my new mantra is, you know the saying, like, you know, live and let live.
Yeah.
Like, my new saying is like lift and let lift. Like,
right.
Let people do whatever the fuck they want to do and shut up. Like, it's okay, man. Yeah. It's really okay. Like, just
I guess the question is not as far as an individual wants to get developed, but how they're going to judge that, you know, what criteria they're going to use, because it's always subjective criteria.
Yeah, it's always subjective, and that just is what it is. That's why I always felt that, you know, Ben Weider's, you know, dying wish to get it in the Olympia, I just never felt it could happen, because it isn't powerlifting. It's not Olympic lifting.
Yeah.
It's an aesthetic. Yeah. And it's the aesthetic that you think maybe will make you the most money by selling more magazines. Again, like I said, you have to consider the source and what the self-interest is. But I don't think that, you know, if your self-interest is making money, which is cool as a promoter or whatever, and this is maybe speaking back in time, like I feel like those early women, it was just they just weren't treated well. A lot of injustice back then.
Yeah.
In terms of what was said by a lot of people, like a lot of people. And
how did you feel personally, like when you saw women like Rachel and Gladys and Carla Dunlap, and when they were up there and they were posing and they weren't overly developed in the way they presented their physiques? Did you think that was the ideal of women's bodybuilding, or were you open to it expanding from there?
No, I thought it couldn't get better than that. They just looked incredible and athletic, and I like proportions, like aesthetics are super important to my eye. Yeah. And I love the aesthetics of a great body. And so that's why you see, Rachel had great proportions. Diana Dennis had amazing shape. Great poser. And she, there's an example, and I think it was the 81 Olympia. Somewhere it's on tape. She was having a discussion with Oscar State, and she had sparkles on her bikini, and he decided that he was going to mark her down for some sparkles. And I don't think, I might be wrong, I don't think she ever competed after that. So you lost this great athlete to just bullshit. And the irony today that you need sunglasses to look at what women wear today. Like there's a lot of bedazzling going on, Right. And I don't even know what these things were. How big could the sparkles be? But her proportions, when you look at her beautiful shape, it's just incredible shape. I don't even mean she was in great condition, but to me, proportions is a separate thing from conditioning. She was great conditioning and great proportions. And Rachel had that as well. I think Gladys had that as well.
Yeah, I did too. Yeah.
So yeah, I've always been a fan of that, just from a purely aesthetic standpoint.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you could have the same argument with men's bodybuilding, because like Lee Labrada and Bob Paris would say that. They would say, it's not just how much mass you can build on your physique, it's how it all looks together. And if there's a certain point where if you put too much mass on, which is possible now with all the drugs they have involved, you can put on tremendous amounts of muscle, more than you could have, 40 years ago. But then it starts to destroy the proportion, not the proportions, but the overall symmetry and the flow of the physique. It's too over heavily muscled. And the overall, and I think a lot of the guys who are fans of old school bodybuilding, and they say the beauty is gone in bodybuilding now. These guys are bigger than ever before. They're conditioned, but the beauty is gone. And I think maybe that's because these guys have developed so much muscle, even if they're in great condition, even if a lot of them now even have smaller waist, but they just have so much muscle that the beauty is gone from the physique compared to how it used to be,
Right. But you have to be careful with the word beauty.
Yeah.
Like there's absolutely somebody out there today that looks at, let's call them mass monsters or whatever, might think they're the most beautiful thing they've ever seen.
Yeah, it is also
subjective. Yeah. So you just got to be careful with those words. I mean, the way for me, if there's an opinion to be had, and I'm going to make my opinion known, which I don't, but I always start it with I. Because once I start it with I, you can't come back to me with anything, because it's just me. This is what I think and feel.
Yeah.
That's how I sort of handle that. Like just I think.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you should think it.
Right. Well, I think that's why they developed this classic physique now, where the guys are limited on how big they can get by their weight compared to their height, and then they'll just the other division alone and let them get as big as possible.
Yeah, I just read about that. Yeah, right. You have to have like. I don't know, like in motorsports, like unlimited. Like it just is what it is. Right. And,
Are you comfortable talking about what happened with Gladys and you guys breaking up, or is that something you don't want to? Okay.
Well, look, if Rick Wayne could put it on the cover of Flex magazine.
That's right. It was on the cover of Flex, right? Yeah.
Yeah, there's really not much story there. The only thing that I know and can say about it is that she met Jean-Claude at it was the very first bikini issue for Muscle and Fitness.
Yeah, like a photo shoot or a
photo shoot. That's right.
Yeah, you're right.
And And the irony was that normally I used to go to all the shoots with her, but this was a big thing in Mexico, and they went down there, and Jean-Claude was on the shoot, and he met her, and they fell in love, like literally. And ironically, also, we never really kind of broke up. Like, they flew back to New York. I think she basically packed up and left.
Wow.
Yeah.
How long were you guys together when that happened?
Oh, I'd have to check the cover of that issue. Well, we met in 82.
I think it was 86.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say 86. So 82
Yeah.
to 86. I mean, obviously we weren't boyfriend, girlfriend in 82, or well, in the beginning.
That's
but
when
we
you met
did
her,
connect. Yeah, I would say maybe a few months into Better Bodies, we kind of knew, like, holy shit, we like each other.
Yeah.
And look, it's worked out great for her. Amazing family, beautiful children.
Yeah.
No complaints. There's no ill will, no nothing.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I don't. Yeah, I mean, people thought, well, if you saw that cover, and then I don't know how much later, like, I didn't want people thinking like I was crying in my beer. Like, okay, it was a little weird, but whatever. Shit happens.
Right.
And then I don't know if it was, I guess it was probably Flex, or maybe it was Muscle Mag. I sent them a photo. It was like my strike back. Somewhere I have it. Maybe it's on my website. There used to be this book called How to Meet Women, or I can't even think of the name. It was really funny, like how to meet women. And so I got a copy of it, and I had somebody take a Polaroid of me, like, looking at it. and it got published, of course. I think it might have been like Rick Wayne publishing it.
Yeah.
Rick, Bob Kennedy, somewhere I have it. Oh, How to Meet Women Without Even Trying. It was like, I don't know, some funny, silly book.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, we're both going to be okay. It's fine.
Yeah. Flex Magazine at the time, I think, was kind of getting into the gossip stuff. And, so I remember they put that on the cover. I'm like, whoa, this is a big story.
Yeah. Well, they had that section that was, Rick Wayne's thing. And, but you know what? It was fun, and people love that stuff.
They love that. It was the most popular section of the magazine, probably.
That's right. And Rick knew that, and, he was good at it. And I'm thankful for all that stuff. Like, he was a great interview. He was a tough interview. He was great.
Great writer.
Yeah.
Did you think Gladys cut her career short by, choosing not to compete anymore? I mean, do you think she had more potential as far as finally?
Oh, I think there's no doubt. But of course, her priorities changed instantly. I mean, she became wife and mother. So she was, onto other things. But yeah, I think there's no doubt about it. I mean, if you think about the impact that she had in such a short period of time, and the fact that today people still sort of idolize her.
She was really only around for a few years, so it's amazing. They're still talking about 40 years later, right?
Yeah, but that's the staying power of what she represented, that archetype. And same with with Rachel.
Yeah.
That archetype, very, very powerful. And still exists, and still people, I see people, I follow some of these sort of like golden age profiles, on Instagram, and, like, I don't know, twice a week, Gladys. Man, she's still out there doing it. I mean, not doing it, but doing it. Impacting people.
Yeah. And today's Rachel's birthday. I put that on my Facebook page.
Oh yeah. I saw
100 comments, it's like she's still super popular,
So powerful, man. So powerful. And I will say, not just to like older people like us, but young people. There's a population of young people. They're like, one of the sites is ran by like a young woman, like a 20-something-year-old.
Oh, really? Huh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Which gives me hope.
I get emails too, but people listen to this podcast and follow it on YouTube, and they're like younger too, and they just say, "I love that generation. I wish I was born earlier."
Yeah, that's right. They're out there, so hopefully they'll sort of find their way into the sport and maybe guide it in some way. But
that's what I'm hoping too. Yeah,
I like when I see that. It makes me feel good that it's not just a bunch of guys of a certain age. They're like, well, we did it this way, we did it that way. It's like, nobody wants to hear that except us. Like,
right. Now, if we could just get them to get rid of the tripods and the phones in the gym, we go back to the old days for sure.
Yeah. I think that ship has sailed.
Yeah, I do too. So what do you got? What do you got planned for your future, Brian? For your near future?
I'm right now. I'm still shooting for Animal Pak.
Okay.
On my 22nd year.
Wow.
And yeah, it's crazy. Just fucking crazy. 22 years with one company.
Wow.
Can't imagine. There's a photographer out there that has a client that has had them under contract for 22 years. But we will see where the future goes. You know, I don't know. I feel like my work has less and less, not importance, but because of social media being insatiable, the need for what I call disposable imagery.
Yeah. Yeah.
Seems like there's maybe less room for the work that I do. Like I never consider my work to be disposable. Even when I switch to digital, it isn't because it's digital, it's disposable.
Yeah.
It's just thought process, what goes into it and so on, and what I choose to shoot, where I want to shoot, things like that. And I don't know how much longer there is. I mean, obviously I'm happy to still be here. So, you know, look, if the phone rings or I get an email from somebody or something or a company, always going to listen, always open to ideas and fresh. But I think I'm at the point in my life where I just really, if I do something, it just needs to be creative.
Yeah.
Like I just can't shoot to shoot. I don't think I would be willing to shoot just for the money. Maybe I would. But it's, you know, I get energized by creativity.
Yeah.
But usually creativity, there's a cost, you know, there's production costs. It's, you know, those shoots that you mentioned, those muscle and fitness shoots that you still remember, those were thousands of dollars of production, thousands. Like I had special effects artists. I had just a crew. I was able to fly, you know, 5 or 6 bodybuilders into the middle of the desert to shoot, you know, the Elvis thing.
Wow.
I mean, the Elvis shoot that I had custom made for Milos was $700.
Wow.
So to Joe's credit, I had a budget.
Yeah.
And they never challenged me on the budget. I wasn't wasting money, but I was like, hey, you know, Milos says Elvis, that'd be pretty fucking cool, but he needs a fucking Elvis costume.
Right.
You can't rent that.
Yeah.
I still have it.
Really? Wow.
So thousands of dollars, 10, 12, 15, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I was being paid well for editorial. Who's doing that today?
No, nobody.
I'd like them to email me.
Yeah.
There's just a point where you just need some money for production. Like you couldn't have done any of those shoots without the high production.
Yeah.
The type of shoots that I did backstage, that's no production. That's you know, person with camera. That's it.
Yeah.
So that's easy. But those shoots, like I say, people still know them. And I love doing those things. I also love shooting backstage, you know, like low tech. I mean, without any of that stuff.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'd like to think I'm still open to all those things, but I just think the whole climate has changed. I don't know that anybody would spend that much money on production, at least in our world. I mean, in the real world, you know, Nike, whoever, those people still, of course, pay tons of money in production. But our world has shrunk from a production standpoint because the magazines are dead. And the magazines are the ones that propped up everything. Yeah. And they were being propped up by the supplement companies.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all that's kind of gone.
Yeah.
Gone. I mean, all my Animal Pak ads, those were double paid spreads in muscle and fitness.
Yeah.
For years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Years. I think that was like $40,000, if I remember correctly.
Wow. Okay.
There's a lot of money back then for ad space.
Yeah.
I think those days.
Still used to charge a fortune too, I think, for advertising in his magazine.
Yeah, it's a ton of money, but that's what you did.
Yeah.
So I don't know how I fit into the new paradigm exactly.
Yeah.
And ironically, or maybe not ironically, I'm now sort of focusing on doing a video about my photography. It's kind of weird.
Okay.
My photography.
Yeah.
But I feel like, the photographs, they live and they're out there and they're all over. But number one, a lot of times, usually there's no credits. Nobody knows who has taken my photos.
Yeah. John Bailey complains about that a lot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, none of us, those guys never got it. You would get muscle and fitness, of course. I got if it was feature, I got what they call feature credit on stage. But when I did other editorial work, you would get gutter credit, you know, on the gutter. And it's like, who spreads open the book like that and, you know, looks at a microscope.
Right.
You don't really get that. So I decided, like, I think I need to do a video about my photography, because a video is, it's highly consumable, as you know.
Yeah.
You're doing this, and whether it's on your phone or, you know, your tablet, people love videos. So my first project is to do the history of the making of the journey, which is the campaign that, of course, launched Frank McGrath.
Yeah.
And it was a series of 18 photographs, which became ads and posters, which still people comment about today. They still DM me about those. They want posters. They resonate with people today. And like we said before, so young people as well. And so I thought, you know, I never really sat with Frank and asked him, like, what was it like? What do you remember? Because it was 5 shoots in the year 2004. And so that's going to be the video. It's about that campaign, because it had so much power and so much impact for Frank too.
Yeah.
It changed Frank's life.
Yeah.
And he went in the early days of that. There was no name. Nobody knew who that man was by design, because the whole idea of the campaign for me was to create, the journey comes from the journey of a bodybuilder. That's where that idea came from. And when I did my very first meeting with Universal, when they wanted to hire me to shoot their ads, I had this idea. They wanted their sort of input was hardcore. We want hardcore. I was like, cool. I live hardcore.
Yeah.
But my idea was to shoot and show the process of bodybuilding, because a lot of people, maybe now they know more because of social media, but back then you didn't really know how long and protracted the process is for a bodybuilder. Depending on the bodybuilder, 16 weeks out, and dieting and training and dieting and hydrating and arguing with your partner. And it was this terrible process. And I thought it would be really cool to capture it and then serialize it month to month. So chronologically, it starts here, 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 and then it ends at the contest, to literally follow the path of the bodybuilder. And they actually rejected that concept when I met with them in 2001. But then I went on to shoot within a couple of months of that meeting. And that my very first shoot was the Shut Up and Train shoot, which a lot of people know that shoot because it's the guy with the watch cap. And it says Shut Up and Train. That's pretty iconic. That was 2001. That was not the journey. Nobody knew Frank, I think, was probably bouncing at a bar in Canada in 2001. And then finally, I don't know what happened, but they agreed to it. They said, yeah, we like that idea. And then it was a matter of finding the guy who would be Frank McGrath. And so I'm going to tell that story with video, of course, whatever video there is, basically the training videos that were shot alongside the photo shoots, and hundreds of my photographs sort of telling the story.
Wow. That sounds cool.
It's going to be cool. It's been really cool for me because I'm literally looking and revisiting things I haven't looked at in 20 years. That's archival shit for me. I don't go relive those days and pat myself on the back. It's like, oh, that was great. But it's been fun, and to have Frank involved and actually talk to him about it. Like we did a Zoom recently, just kind of like almost a production like meeting, like, okay, what are we going to do? Got to get you interviewed. And so he was telling me, like, oh yeah, I remember like the first time I met you, I thought, who the fuck is this? I'm like, really? Like all these great things that he was saying. I'm like, okay, hold that for the interview, please. I've never heard these things. So it's going to be, if I've never heard it, then you've never heard it. And I think people will dig it hearing it. And so I'm pretty stoked about it. And I think if people enjoy it, then I'm going to open it up for the first 10 years from 2001 to 2011. So I can pull in Evan Centopani, Eric Fankhauser, Dave Palumbo, Andy Giordinello, which was the guy in that first ad. Because I've never they've been my friends for all this time, and I've never said, Evan, like, what was it like shooting with me? What was that shoot like? What did you think? And so that's the idea. If people dig it, then I'm going to open it up I'll fold the journey back in, but open it up from 2001 to 2011, which I kind of feel was peak Animal. Like I did this shoot with Evan in 2011, which was just mind blowing. And I think, after that, things changed a little bit. It didn't feel as peak to me, or at least photographically. When I look at my work, I'm like, man, that 10-year span was badass.
Wow, that's awesome.
And so that would be the plan if people like it.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing that. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. I just have to learn how to fucking edit. Oh God, I'm a photographer, man. I'm not a videographer, but I'm gonna try.
Yeah, I have to go to a whole new world.
Yeah, so that's sort of literally like my immediate project.
Okay, good. Well, I hope you do that, because I would love to see that. I'm sure a lot of people.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
I think both old and young.
Yeah,
interesting to hear, and to hear Frank speak about it.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Yeah. So.
All right, Brian. Well, thank you very much for joining me on the show. It was a pleasure talking to you. You really made an impact on the sport with all that you did with your Better Bodies and the marketing of the athletes and the beginning of women's bodybuilding and now your photography. So it was really a pleasure speaking with you. I'm glad I got to meet you after all these years.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it. And, it's hard to shut me up about all the school,
Oh, it was great. I loved it. It was a great discussion.
Yeah. So cool. Thank you.
All right. We'll stay in touch, and all the best to you, Brian. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Bye now.
All right. Take care.